Hey folks, how you doing? Back with the DKTronics Issue 2 Spectrum today. So in the last video we had a little tour of it. So what's outside, what the keys are like, what's inside. We found out it's an early Issue 2 Spectrum and it's got a couple of little mods inside as well. What I want to do in this video is a bit of a clean-up and a little bit of maintenance. So as with all Spectrums, it has apparently an issue with the capacitors where they can be a little bit twitchy when they get older. So I'm going to do a full recap on the board. I also want to clean up the case. I want to change out this power switch as well for something with a plastic cover on it, because that's actually tied directly into the mains. So yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a maintenance video, I think. So I'll reposition the camera and we'll get into it. Oh, actually, just before I switch off, have a look at the case and see if you can see anything a little bit odd about it, because I spotted it the other day and it's been driving me absolutely crackers ever since. It's all I can see when I look at it. So if you look at the keypad, that's nice and straight to the case, everything's at a nice right angle. But if you look at the main keyboard, that's on a twist. Yeah, so the gap here, that's a fair bit bigger than the gap here, and the whole keyboard's kind of twisted round. So I don't know if they're all like that, or I just got one that was made on a Friday afternoon. I don't know. So the guy who was operating the mould wasn't really paying attention. I don't know. But it's interesting. Had I bought it brand new and paid a lot of money for it, I'd have probably found that quite irritating, but I didn't. So, hey. Anyway, let's reposition the camera. Let's dig into it a little bit deeper. Let's start stripping down and let's have a look at that main board. Right, let's have a look at getting this board out, shall we? Because I want to do the recap first. I have had a couple of issues with it. I've been using it a little bit and I've been getting a very flickery picture. Not all the time, but some of the time. Usually when the sound's playing, that'll certainly set it off, but then it takes a long time to calm down as well. So it could be this thing here. And if you haven't seen the last video, effectively what this does is it takes the speaker sound and it adds it to the composite signal and it actually outputs it through the TV. It's kind of interesting. I've never seen anything quite like it before. But I'm not going to be using it going forward, so I'll be disconnecting it and putting it somewhere safe. Well, that could be the cause of the interference. It could also be bad caps as well. Okay, let's see. Keyboard connector first, so let's get that out of the way. So presumably that'll just pull out. Yep. Try not to dislodge any wires. God, that's a tight fit. That really is a tight fit. Hang on. Christ. I don't want to start yanking on it too much and doing some damage, but Christ, that might have corroded in a little bit. Let me see what I can let's give it some contact cleaner. I don't want to do any damage, so we'll see. There it goes. That was in tight. Wow. Okay, keyboard disconnected. Wires for the reset switch, they can come off. There we go. Disconnected. Same goes for this sound mod board, which I'm not going to throw away, I'm going to keep. It is kind of interesting. There we go. There we go. A couple of cables tacked onto the power socket as well. Let's see if we can just remove those. That one doesn't want to let go. I'm not going to force it. Let's just clip it for now and I'll worry about the excess wire later. Right, that board should be free now. So, well, electrically it's disconnected. So I've got screws to take out. Let's just do that quickly. Seems to be a bit stuck down now with a bit of double-sided tape, so let's see if we can just get that moving. In fact, let me get some IPA on it. We'll just soften that up a little bit. There's no point forcing things, is there? You don't need to. Probably hasn't moved for over 30 years, so... Oh no, that's well stuck. Okay, I'll let the IPA do its thing. That's going now. I hope I don't pull any traces off. I don't like that. I do not like that at all. There we go. We're free. Yeah, just having a look at this audio board. It looks pretty homemade to me, so... I mean, I could be wrong, but that looks like a homemade PCB. Could have been part of a cheap kit that was sold, or... I don't know. I don't know. I've never seen one before, but I don't need it, so it's going. But I see no reason to throw it away, so I'll put it somewhere safe. So these are the wires I clipped for the reset. Now normally with an issue 2 Spectrum you would just put a short across C27 there and that will reset the board. And I've ohmed it out with a meter and that is effectively what it's doing. But what they've done is they've picked up an earth right up there, and on the back, yeah, they've tied it to a connector on the expansion port. Which is fine, I suppose, but I'm not going to leave it like that. I think that's a little bit... well, I don't like it. I can do a neater job than that. So I'll be taking those wires out. I'm also going to soak what's left of this tape with a bit of IPA and gently peel it off. Hopefully not do any damage to the board. I don't like the way that's been installed either. But that's fine. And then, yeah... recap the rest of the boards. I don't know if it'll come up well on the camera, but you can see it particularly well on this capacitor here. The leads have actually got some corrosion on. So it's safe to say that those capacitors have seen better days. They might be fine, I don't know. Spectrums do have a reputation for having weak capacitors, especially after nearly 4 decades. It's to be expected, I suppose. So we'll take them out and we'll change them, and that'll eliminate any potential faults in the future, hopefully. So first job first, before I do anything, get rid of this tape. So let me just try and destroy the glue with a bit of alcohol, soften it up a little bit. And hopefully I can just peel them out. Let's give it a minute for it to do its thing. In fact, while I'm here, let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of this wire. There we go. Okay, I'm going to work on that a little bit off camera, but effectively I'm just going to get rid of this tape. So I've just gone around it off camera and I've disconnected all the wires that I clipped, so they're all done. Bit of desoldering braid just to clean up the board as well afterwards. All the tape's gone, so now it's time for a damn good recapping, I think. So I've got a pile of capacitors. And there's also a Sinclair recommended mod that I need to make to the power board, which just means installing a new resistor and an extra capacitor at the back, so we'll be doing that as well. Like I said, I'll swap out the voltage regulator too, so we'll put a switching one in, so we can get rid of this heat sink and cut down on the heat. So yeah, let's get cracking. So I've pulled the first capacitor and I thought, well, do you know what, let's see what it's actually like, what sort of condition it's actually in. So I've got my little tester. So let's hook it up and see what we get. It should be 100 microfarad 16 volt capacitor. let's see what we get. $115.5, and the ESR isn't terrible. Yeah, who said Spectrums have bad caps? I mean, yeah, it's gone up in capacitance, so that's not good. But let's compare it to a brand new budget cap. Let's just see what the difference is. So I think this is a slightly higher voltage, but it's the same capacitance rating, or it should be. So yeah, you see that's far more in spec. ESR seems slightly higher actually. But they are cheapy capacitors that I'm using here. But it's far closer to the 100 microfarads. So yeah, it seems to have gone up in capacitance with age. I don't know if that's a thing or not. I'll go ahead and I'll buzz the rest out and we'll test a few more once I've done that. So we're all done. Nice new fresh capacitors. And I have tested it and it does seem to still work. In fact, the picture looks a lot better. So maybe something was a bit out of whack, but we'll come to that. So I've got a pile of old capacitors which we can test. Now I need to do the modification for the voltage circuit. And it's a Sinclair recommended one, so R60 I think needs to be swapped out with a 270 ohm resistor, and I've just got to put a capacitor between here, the positive on this capacitor, and R58, and it's supposed to make the voltage circuit a little bit more reliable. I think it relates to people unplugging and plugging things into the expansion while it's on. It gives it a bit more chance of survival. I think that's the reason for it. But maybe it makes it more reliable in general. I don't know exactly, but it's a Sinclair recommended modification, so I'm going to do that. And while I've got the soldering iron out, I'll swap out this regulator, this linear one, for something a bit more efficient. So that's done. New resistor, extra capacitor. I've bent it in a way so that it stays away from the expansion socket. And new voltage regulator in place as well, so that's done. And it all seems to work fine, so excellent. So we're still running RF. So for the composite mod, it's nothing complicated. We need to cut the 5-volt supply to the regulator, which is there. Just snip that right out. This here is the composite signal coming off the board and straight into the modulator. You can just feed that right through to the centre pin in here and that will work with a wire, that's fine. If you want to remove some of the DC offset, you can fit a 100 microfarad capacitor, which is what I'm going to do. So your negative lead, sorry, your positive lead, beg your pardon, don't get that the wrong way around, would connect to this point, and the negative lead would connect to the centre pin on the socket. So I think that's what I'm going to do. There we go. Because I'm fitting this into such a big case, I've got a bit of leeway with the capacitor. If I was fitting it into an original Spectrum case, I would have the capacitor lying down and it would fit, but I don't need to do that in this case. You'll have to excuse the annoying music, but I've got the system on, I don't know, I suppose you call it a soak test for the last couple of hours, and I just wanted to make sure it was working correctly after its recap, and it's fine. This regulator is staying nice and cool. It's barely getting warm at all actually, so that's a big improvement I think over the old linear 7805. And yeah, it seems fine. The volume is very low. You see, the internal speaker is working, but it's very quiet. But I think that's just a characteristic of the issue 2s. I seem to remember most of mine being a bit like that. The issue 3s onwards, they seem to get a bit louder. But yeah, it all seems good. So let's continue. Yeah, so I've run the computer for a good couple of hours now, and before the recap I was getting picture issues, so the picture would flicker up and jump about a little bit. None of that's happening now, so there may have been an issue with the original capacitors. More than likely that's what the problem was. The only change I have made is I've just adjusted one of the trim pots to get rid of some of the dot crawl. That improved the picture no end. But it seems fine. It seems like a system that wants to live. But I thought what we'd do is we'd take a look at the values of some of the older capacitors that I've removed and just see how out of spec, if indeed they're out of spec at all, they are, and how they compare to the new ones. Bearing in mind, I have fitted kind of cheapy parts for the new ones, but we'll see what the difference is. Yeah, so this is a new capacitor. It's a budget brand, and it's what I've used to recap the board with, and this one is marked as a 22 microfarad. So let's just put that on the tester and see what we get. And 20.93. It's not bad. It's not bad. I think there's a variance, acceptable variance of about 20% thereabouts. And for a budget capacitor, I'm not going to worry about that in the slightest. So that's fine. Let's try one of the originals. So again, it's a 22 microfarad capacitor. Just test that one. $35.18, yikes, and the ESR is 3.1 ohms as well. Yeah, that's quite considerably out. That's a hell of a drift. Do you know what? Let me go through, test the others, because there aren't that many of them. And I'll bring you back when I've got some results. And the results are in, so yeah. So I've listed them in order of value, starting with the lowest first. And the first one is a 1 microfarad capacitor, and it measured at 1.095, so that's a change of 9.5%. That is probably still within spec, and that's fine. But the one below it, again, 1 microfarad, measured at 1.44 microfarads, that's a change of 44%. We're starting to really drift out of spec. It gets worse. 22 microfarad, measured at 35.18, another 22, 29.75, again 32.38. Yeah, these values have really drifted, so it's probably just as well that I swapped them out. I think it was well worth doing. And back with the case. So there's a few things I want to do with this. First of all, I want to get rid of the power switch at the back, because it's got a metal power switch that's directly connected to the mains. I don't like that. It's probably fine, but whatever. I've bought another one. And this is good for 5 amps, so it's over and above what we need. But it's the single throw double pole, I should say, so I can connect both live and neutral to it and cut them both. Whereas this is just, I think this is just switching the live at the moment. So I'll replace that. I want to strip it down and give it a good clean. I also want to change the LED as well. For no other reason than I've got a bag of colour change LEDs that I think would just look a bit cooler as well. So I'll probably put that in. Okay. So let's separate the cables going to the top half of the case. Then I'll strip out the bottom half, clean it up. Strip out the top half, clean it up. And then when we reassemble things, I can put in my new LED and my new power switch as well. Okay, so what have we got? I'm going to need some clippers, thinking about it. So let's cut the lead going to the switch. Leads going to the LED. And yeah, let's snip out this live and neutral here as well. Okay, we'll come back to the top half in a bit. Let's have a look at the bottom half. So yeah, I'm fairly sure that this is not how DKTronics originally sold it. I'm pretty sure they never came with a wooden base. If you know differently, please let me know. But I want to get all this old tape out because it's disgusting. And that's going to be... Ugh, God, it's disgusting. It's just degraded. That's going to be easier said than done. I might soak it with a bit of alcohol. That might be the best way of shifting it. Power supply is going to come out. I'll take the speaker, or will I take the speaker out? I might just leave the speaker where it is and clean around it, actually. I don't need the speaker at the moment, but maybe that's something I could think of in a future project. I don't know. I could fit a little amplifier, remove the internal speaker and use it to drive this, maybe. Or, I don't know, maybe I could have an audio output and it could be driving that, so I could hook it up to the TV. Food for thought. I don't know. Let's get this power supply out, shall we? So, what's holding that in? You can see a bolt there. And there's a bolt there. So, let me just go and grab some tools. Yeah, that's stuck down as well, and I don't want to just pull on the transformer. Pull the connectors off the board. I think I'll give it a spray with some alcohol and see if that just softens the glue up a little bit, and then I'm not forcing anything. Oh, I'll do this off camera. This might take a while. So yeah, it's out. It's done. It came out in one piece. It took longer than I thought. That tape really did have a good grip on it. But looking underneath it, there's a couple of things I don't like. First of all, the transformer is loose to the board. I don't know if that's normal or not, but probably not. The most worrying thing, though, is you can see this burn mark right here. And it looks like that solder might have... It's either melted or it's been touched up very badly in the past. I suspect it's melted, actually, so this thing might have overheated. So I don't think I'm going to be putting this back in the system. I think I'm going to get rid of it altogether. So I'm glad I took it out, and I'm glad I took the time to check its condition as well. I've got like a pile of these things floating about, so I'll replace this with the guts of a known good supply. I'll make sure it's at least a UK 1400 as well, so it's got that bit of extra power as well. Yeah. You can see here where you've got the DC output tap as well. You've also driven the power LED directly off the power supply. I won't be doing that going forward either. But yeah, it was worth a look. I'm glad I checked. This power supply is junk. It's just not worth mucking about when you're talking about mains voltages. I'll replace it with something that I know is good and not try and guess what's wrong with this one. It can just go in the bin. Top case teardown. Let's take the keyboard out. So I'm just seeing 8 screws. Let's just pull those out. Ooh. Yake. Right, reset switch. Just for now that can come out so I can clean the case. And power switch. Come on. Right, the power cable, I can't see how that's attached. It must be glued in. I'm not sure. where it needs to go. That's pretty good strain relief, actually. I don't know how he's done that. Not sure. Okay, I'm going to whittle that off camera, and I'm also going to take the LED out as well. I'll bring you back when I'm done. So case has now been stripped, and I've even washed it as well, so it looks a lot better than it did. Although it still looks a bit battered and bruised, so we'll deal with that in a little bit. I've fitted the new power switch on the back, and I've fitted it where the reset button was. And the reason I've done that is because where the power switch originally was, you've got this moulding, and the switch wouldn't have fitted flush to the plastic, so that would have interfered with it. So I've moved it over here. For the reset, I've used the hole where the AC power line went in. So I've fitted a new reset switch, and something that actually looks like a reset switch. And that leaves me with this hole here, so I may use it for the power cord going forward and add some strain relief onto the board inside. I may use it for something else, I don't know. But that's what I've done so far. This is a bottle of black trim wax, and it's used for cleaning up black trim and bumpers on cars. And I'm going to use it on this, just to see if I can get rid of some of these scuff marks and make it look a bit nicer. It's vile stuff to use, it really is, because it gets absolutely everywhere, but it does make black plastic look nice. So, and it should last a long time as well, as it's not going to be out in the elements. So I'm just going to spend a little bit of time going around the case, and we'll see what the results are in a bit. I'll bring you back when I've done it. Not bad, not bad. It's dulled down a lot of the marks, I think. It's not perfect, but you can't really expect perfect with these things, can you? I'm happy to move on. I think it looks alright. This is the original reset switch, and I think it's got a bit of corrosion in it because a lot of the time it works, but sometimes it will stick. It's going to make a liar out of me now, isn't it? Oh, there it goes. Yeah. And it wasn't always working electrically either, so potentially I could clean it up, but I've put that little one in the case now, which I think looks a lot better. This thing looks like it should be operating a valve in a church organ, frankly. It's I can't imagine what it was originally out of. It looks fairly heavy duty, so it's something that's probably been handling a lot of current. I don't know what that's out of, but yeah, I won't be using it going forward. Base has been cleaned up, so it's not perfect, but all the sticky residue's gone anyway, so yeah, I can start putting things back in it, and I suppose I'll start with the power supply. So it came with an external power supply, so I'll use the guts out of that. It is a UK 1400, so it's the heavier duty of the two. They came with a 750 and a 1400. Either will run the Spectrum, but if you're running add-ons as well, it's worth having the beefier power supply. So let's get that mounted where the old one was. There she is. And not a burn mark in sight underneath, so that'll do. I've swapped out the filtering caps on the power supply, and it's just as well I did actually, because one of them was very, I don't know if you'll see that actually on the camera if it'll focus, but very visibly leaking. The other one was fine, it tested okay as well, but yeah, that was very much in a state of failure, so I've put new filter caps in, and now I just need to mount it onto the board. But I need to be a bit careful. Now, the previous owner, he'd only used 2 screws, and he'd mounted them in diagonally, and when you look at that power supply, oh, if it'll come, that's fine. You've got, in fact, he could have even put 4 in, there's nothing there that's going to cause a problem. If you look at this power supply, I can use certainly these 2 front holes to mount, that's fine, but the rear, if you look underneath, we're very close. We're not touching, but we're extremely close to the high tension side of the circuit, right there and there. And although, yeah, it's not technically touching, it's a bit too close for comfort for me. The risk is, I suppose, if it's a really humid day and you do get a little bit of moisture in there, it's very unlikely, but you could get a bit of bridging going on, and then you could have someone who picks the computer up from the underneath and finds that those screws are actually live at mains voltage. It's very unlikely, but I want to cut out the risk altogether. I'm just going to use these screw holes here. They're on the low tension side. They should be perfectly safe, and that's enough to hold it steady as well, I think. So yeah, it's going back in with 2 screws as well. Yep, I've been busy off camera, so I've got the new power cable installed. I say new power cable, it's one from the power supply. And I've just used a bit of heat shrink tubing for strain relief. Trust me, that's going nowhere. And I've wired it into the switch. And I've installed the transformer. I've had to put it in a slightly different orientation to where it was originally, because it does foul the switch otherwise. But it's in, and it's fine, and I've powered it all up, and it seems to be working just fine. I'm getting a steady voltage from it. I'm going to go round it with some hot glue. First thing I want to do is I just want to glue these bolts that are holding it in. Not to hold the bolts in, but purely as an electrical insulator. And I just want to run a little bit between the board and the transformer as well, just to hold it steady. Because normally this would be held in by the case and it would be held steady, but that's not the case anymore, so I just want to give it some mechanical support should this thing take a knock. I don't want this thing coming loose, because the original one was loose. So yeah, we're getting there. Okay, so let's have a look at this rather grotty keyboard then, shall we? So it absolutely needs a clean, it's disgusting. And a lot of the lettering's worn away on the keys as well. But because it's been, oh, when did I start making this video? About 2 or 3 weeks ago, maybe even longer. I've just been that busy, I've not had time to do much to it, and as a result I'm further behind on where I expected to be at this point. But the good side to that is, things I've been waiting on in the post have now arrived, and I have keyboard stickers. Let me just try and see if I can get a focus on those. Yeah, so they've come from halfway around the world, but they finally arrived, and these are really high quality. I don't know if you'll see it on the camera, but they're really nicely textured keyboard keycap stickers as well for the Spectrum. I've got 2 sizes. It's only the smaller size I think that's going to fit these, but yeah, I'm going to use these to replace the worn keycaps here. So first things first, I think strip the keyboard down and get everything cleaned because it's full of dirt, and then we can start applying the new stickers. Excellent. I've seen worse. I mean, not much, but I've seen dirtier keyboards than this. Absolutely. I think what I might start doing is I might start stuffing a pillowcase with all the stuff I find in these and just see how long it takes me to fill it. I don't know. Is that grim? A little bit. Yeah, okay, let's get this brushed out and cleaned up. And then, yeah, we'll start cleaning the keycaps themselves as well. The numpad keys, the lettering on them, well, that survived really well. In fact, they're perfect. So I think all I'm going to do with these is just wash them. And when I say wash them, I mean stick them in the ultrasonic. Because life really is too short to stand there with a toothbrush scrubbing these things. So this'll do. Just throw them in there. Just a little bit of detergent and water. Let them scrub clean for a bit. So all the keys have been cleaned, and they have yellowed quite a bit actually. To be honest, now that I've got all the stickers off them, this would be the perfect time for retrobrighting, but I don't know. I really don't know if I've got the patience for it, so I think I'm just going to go ahead, and now that they've been cleaned, install the new stickers. I think it'll look good enough. The old stickers, I've kept them. I don't quite know why, but they're there for reference, I suppose. Some are better than others. Some have barely been touched, whereas others, I mean, like that one for example, they've just been worn to nothing. But they were looking scruffy, so I'm glad I've removed them. So I'll start fitting the new stickers, and we'll see how that goes. And while I'm waiting for the keys to dry, I'll sort out the power LED, I think. So I've got a pile of these, and they're the colour change LEDs. They just look a little bit nicer, or depending on what your opinion is, tackier than the standard red LED. I like them, and I've got a packet of them, so I'm going to be using those in the case. The thing is, you run them at 5 volts, which is fine. They're incredibly bright, and I'm hoping just to tone that down a bit. So I'm going to run a voltage divider circuit just to bring the voltage down a bit. So I'm going to run it directly off the 5 volt rail on the computer. So this is what I'm going to do. So I've got plus 5 volts there coming in. And call that R1. 33 ohms. R2 100 ohms. And that gives me an output of, I think, 3.7, 3.8 volts. And the reason I've gone for those values is for no other good reason than I just happen to have them. So yeah, so I'll install that as well when I install the LED, and hopefully that'll just bring the intensity down just a little bit for it. And there it is. All done. 1 voltage divider. It's just a couple of resistors in a bit of heat shrink, and that'll mount inside the case, and that's all it takes. Well, that's all the stickers on. I don't think they look terrible. So I'm going to go ahead and put them back on the keyboard. Well, I see no reason why I can't refit the board in the machine now, so let's do that. What I'll do, now the previous guy, he put a load of double-sided tape in, and welded the board and the power supply into the case. I don't like that, but I do understand I need a little bit of a a separation between the wood and the machine, so I'm just gonna put a couple of layers of electrical tape in. So I'm not sticking the board in again. And it'll just stop the wood from scratching the board, which is all I'm interested in really. Little bit of wiring up to do now, so that's for the power LED. Oh gosh, I hope I left enough length. Christ. Reset switch. I just need to short this capacitor. Oh, and the power, of course, as well. So yeah, I don't need that much cable either, so I'll shorten that. So I'll just solder all that in place and I'll bring you back when it's done. It's done. We're hooked up. So the power's in. LED. Reset's all connected. So, in theory now, all I need to do is put the keyboard back in and we should be done. Do you know, it's really nice to just start putting things back together. And this should be the final bit. And we're all done and back together. It looks alright. I think those keyboard stickers have worked out quite well. I quite like the look of them. Yeah. LED, even with that voltage divider, is still really bright. But you can't win them all. It's okay, I suppose. And yeah. We're working well, so I suppose now I can go ahead and play some games. So it all seems to run really well. Picture's holding nice and steady. Yeah, it's a survivor. It's just what I wanted. And this is just the keyboard that the Spectrum needed back in the day. It really is. So I think I'm going to have many happy hours on this thing. So there you go. It's done. It's a survivor, and I'm quite pleased with the way it's come out. Actually, I think LED may be a little bit bright, but so what? The keys. This is the keyboard that the Spectrum really should have come with. It just transforms the whole unit. The stickers, I think they work out really well. If you're a purist and you like the original look of these cases, then maybe they're not for you, but they work for me. I think they smartened it up, and they're certainly better than the mess that I took off the keycaps. Yeah, if I'd have had this back in the day, I think I'd have been very, very pleased with myself. Yeah, I'm very pleased with myself now, as it happens. But yeah, so I think I'll wrap this up here. I think that's all I need to do to the system now. It should be good for a few more years now. The only thing I haven't looked at yet that came with it were those joysticks. So it came with a couple of joysticks that looked like for a Tandy system. And it's come with a DKTronics joystick interface as well. I've not gone through any of that yet. If that's something that interests you, let me know and we'll look at it in a video maybe. But yeah, I think I'm going to call this one here. So as always, thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers. Bye.